So now I'd like to switch gears to great buddies of mine. I love like family. Amazing place near on your way to Darien Lake. We've all been to Darien Lake. If you live in Buffalo, you pass by it many times and maybe not even have noticed it. But I'm so grateful and thankful for what they've done, that we've had several people go there and literally transform their life. And I just want to hand this over to my friends, Pastor John and Pastor Victoria, so they could share their heart about an awesome place called Total Freedom.
Thank you. You know, I'd like to thank Dr. Caparasso and Joy and all the people that support him, because I know Dr. Caparasso has a heart. And we, like it was said earlier, we have to have a heart for helping fight this battle. We are Total Freedom. I'm a groundskeeper along with Victoria. The CEO is Jesus. I don't want to preach, but there's a couple things I have to say. I'm going to speak a couple minutes only, and I'm going to pass it over to Victoria, but I'm going to tell you who we are, and she's going to tell you what we do. And then Sean's going to give a testimony about what God has done in his life. You know, I've been doing this for many years in Canada and here. I was an addict myself. I'm not going to get into all that, but I've done the needle to sniffing solvents to everything in between in my life. I'm going to be 60 years old this year, and the good Lord took me out of that 15 years ago. Went through a process, getting educated, doing things we had to do, but the Lord seasoned me and Victoria on the streets for 8 years before we started to do what we're doing. And that's our qualifications. Been there, done it. So what we are, as you can see as I'm speaking, we're just giving you a little idea of what we do there, and we're a family. When people come out, they're family. And we treat it that way. And it's not a rehab. I've said it's not a rehab. What it is, what we do is a lifestyle change. And the addiction doesn't become an issue anymore if you change your life and you put Jesus in the front. Now, I know not everybody agrees with that, and the one scripture that was given to me was, Jesus said at one point when he was asked about paying taxes, he said, render to Caesar, or the government, what's theirs, and render to God what's God's. So I believe this is something in myself as a God issue, you know, and Jesus is the only one that can take us out of this, because he took me out of it. In saying that, I know it doesn't work for everybody, but the issue I've been having all these few years we've been here is this oasis thing is difficult for us to come through because of what we believe. So there's always a contradiction there, but we would love the government to welcome us as an alternative. We call ourselves an alternative addiction program because we are an alternative to what's out there. And it does work. I'm not, you know, and as you can see, different things we do. It's a 50-acre facility. We can house, I'm going to let Victoria to talk about that, but anyway, I believe that it's something that will work for not everybody, but for some. And it's always brought up to me about, well, what's your approval rating? Well, Victoria did go and research every application we've taken over the last 5 years, and only 25% have made it through the program. 80% of them made it through it are doing very well. Amen. But it's not an easy thing to go through. It's difficult to lay your life down and reprogram everything to change your lifestyle. But when it does take place, there's a lot of fruit behind it. So that's who we are. I'm going to introduce Victoria. She's going to tell you a little bit about how we do it.
If one of you has a loved one that is struggling with an addiction, or possibly you have a client that is struggling with addiction and you're looking for a place for them, your first step in having someone come to Total Freedom would be to make that call, or have them make that call. The next step is to fill out an application, and then we would set up a meeting, or we would do an online intake. Once a person is actually accepted to the program and is, first day coming in, a typical day is going to look like, you know, early morning, 6 a.m. wake up. They're going to get into devotions. They're going to get into group prayer, and then we meet for worship in the morning as well, every morning. And we then get into morning teachings. Now the teachings would be spiritually based, but it's a spiritual program. And basically it's to help somebody to find that relationship with God. Not everybody that comes into the program knows God, or is even a believer, and that is totally okay. You don't have to be. However, we do believe that as you are with us, that will change. And then if it doesn't change, obviously, you know, a person isn't going to stay for long. So the curriculum is as I said, spiritually based to build that relationship with God, but it also includes a process of working through emotional attachments, healing issues, the deep down issues that brought them to us in the first place, and then a process of deliverance and just basically working through those in the first phase of the process, which is, you know, anywhere from 3 months to 4 or 5 months. It depends on the person. And it really depends on the person how fast they're going to go, and we never rush anybody. Everybody goes at their own pace. And you know, we've actually got a guy that's been there for over a year, and he's still working on phase 1, but that's okay. And you know, he doesn't have a lot of family to help him, and that's okay too. A lot of people might ask, well, how does one afford to come to this program? Well, first of all, it's $125 a week, and we do ask if families can afford to support the client. Then that's wonderful. If they can't, then that's okay too. You know, we will get them food stamps, but we also have, I don't know if you saw the first slide where it's a fairly big campus. Well, we have a business on the campus, that's rental business, and that helps offset the expense of the program. So we do it with God's help, and we've never really had an issue paying bills. So God has always been there every step of the way to assist us in doing whatever we need to do. As you can see, going through the video, a lot has taken place, and this is just a year. This is 2017 that you're watching, and this is just a year in the life of Total Freedom. So it can be busy and it can be overwhelming. A lot has taken place. And as John said, our success rate with our graduates is approximately 80%. We do have 3 graduates with us today, and two you are going to hear from. But I want to reach out to you right now. Is there anything that you want to know? Is there any questions that anybody may have? Is there something that I didn't answer? Because yes, go ahead. It's residential, 9 months.
Can it be a day program, please, or not?
We don't have that right now, so something maybe in the future, but right now we do actually have evening Bible studies and so forth that the public can come to. So there is that. Yes?
Are you taking women again?
Well, that's interesting because we did have a women's program, and 2 of the graduates are here today. And we just found that with the resources that we have, it's mostly just myself and John and just volunteer help that we have. So we were finding that we didn't have the resources to be able to have both male and female. And it's something that is obviously on our heart and something that we want to do in the future. And we actually have our site on a property that's in very close proximity, and if anybody's interested in seeing more about that, I actually have a page in our brochure that explains what we would like to see, but it's our heart, and that is what we want to do.
Yeah.
Now you might ask also, why does this program work, or what's special about it? And I really believe that it's the love. It's the love that not just John and I have for the people that come into the program, but it's the love of the family that everybody becomes when they're in the program. And it's not just the guys in the program, it's their families too. They all become our extended families. So it really is a place to find peace, a place to find healing, a place to find love.
It's a 24-hour
program, we live there. It's our life. It's what we do. So I just want to make that clear that we actually live on the property. Plus, we're a 501c3 ministry. There's a total freedom in Florida. It's not like we're out there by ourselves. We have the covering, and we're with another group that we're associated with, and they're planning on putting another one in Ohio. So we're expanding as we speak. But heart is what it's about.
Yes.
Any other questions?
We also have, just to interrupt you for a sec, we also, I know groups are very important to recovery, and we don't necessarily do 12 steps. We do one step, and that is Christ. But within that, I'm sure, there are many steps it takes. Of course, yeah. So with that said, every night we do meet as a group, and we call it round table, and the people that are in the program will, all of us meet together either with us as staff or the graduates, and it's where we have the chance to talk about our day, and if there's any issues that need to be aired out, that's one of the times when it takes place. But of course, John is on the grounds probably about 3 days a week, and he also counsels with the guys, as do I, as needed. So, is there any other questions? Yes.
Do you guys do stuff with insurance, like can insurance covered?
We don't, and again, if, as I said, if somebody can't afford to pay or somebody doesn't have insurance, that we don't ever let that be a reason for us not to take somebody. So,
Amen.
So yeah, it can be free if it has to be free. So
Money's never an issue.
No.
God takes care of it.
Amen.
Amen.
is there any other questions? Okay. I just want to turn it over briefly to Lisa. Lisa is, when we did have the women's program, Lisa's our first graduate, and she just wants to say a couple words.
Hello. I just want to tell you, I'm a graduate of 2015, all because of God's glory. The only thing I did was make that first step. He did the rest. Also, my daughter's a graduate of 2016, and my husband is a graduate of 2017.
Praise God.
He is so good all the time. Right now, I just want to talk about the Women's House. That is my desire, to start and help manage the Women's House, because there's nothing out there around here to help women, and we need it. They need it. If it wasn't for this program taking me when they did, God opened up that door, I would not be standing here right now.
Amen.
I already know this. I'd be dead and in hell, because I was not saved, and neither was my daughter. And thank God he opened up that door for me, and I want to give back as much as I can to him for all he's done for me, and that's by helping my sisters and their families. And I believe it's going to happen. I trust it's going to happen. I believe God's got so many wonderful plans in store. And I just want to say, I just thank God from the bottom of my heart for everything he's done for me and for all my brothers. And it's just amazing being a part of this program. I didn't have to pay a penny. Not a penny. They did it out of the kindness of their hearts. And I just praise God every day. Thank you so much for listening. God be the glory.
Lisa's currently taking credits for her ministerial certificate. She's also gone through the drug and alcohol program, so she's got a certificate in that as well. So she's definitely qualified, but definitely qualified by the experience that she possesses. So I wanted to touch on one thing. You know, any program can work if the person that is doing the program is willing to work the program, willing to do what it takes and make that commitment. Our program won't work if you're expecting us to do it for you. It's only going to work if you want to change your life and you want to, you know, no longer use drugs. We're just here to facilitate that happening, and if we can help you do that, we would be very glad to. We have a table outside for literature if you're interested in that. But right now I want to introduce Sean, Sean Williams is a graduate from 2017, and we just want you to hear his testimony.
Hallelujah. Thank you all. Thanks to all the speakers here today. Very inspiring and beautiful to see God at work. So, as Victoria mentioned, I'm a graduate. I graduated in September. I grew up in Tonawanda, and like Elliot was saying, I had everything on a golden platter handed to me. I had a beautiful family, loving family, everything I could ever want or need. But I pushed it away for whatever reason. But because I was deceived is the reason. But so I had a loving family, went to Sweet Home High School, went to Canisius College, graduated with a bachelor in arts for math education, and then got a job at Sweet Home High School after I graduated, which was in 2007. So I was an athlete throughout high school and college. I played football, golf, hockey, basketball, everything. So I was a teacher for several years. I had a girlfriend that we were planning on getting engaged and going to get married. And it was my 7th year of teaching that I was playing basketball with a bunch of guys. We played in a summer league, and I blew out my knee. I tore my my ACL, MCL, my LCL, and my meniscus. I just totally destroyed my knee. So I had surgery. Now I will mention, up until this point, I grew up, smoking weed and idolizing the Grateful Dead. That's what I did. When he was playing that slide earlier with the kids escaping drugs, I did every single drug on that chart I have in my life, except for the Slizzerp or whatever that was. I never did that, by the grace of God. But everything else I had done. Now, before my knee surgery, I would smoke weed, I would take acid, I would do those kinds of things and listen to my music and whatever. And I functioned. I went to work throughout the week. I did these things on the weekends. I thought that I was okay. I thought that was the normal. I thought I lived a pretty normal, somewhat successful life. So I had my knee surgery, and through my athletic career, I had known the doctor who performed that surgery, and he prescribed me 10 hydrocodone pills a day. And because I had known him, he extended the time that I would be prescribed those to, I believe it was 10.5 months that I did those pills. It was all throughout my rehab and post-rehab and everything, because I was an athlete and I wanted to play sports again recreationally. So he allowed that to happen. So I was being a big, tough football player, just full of pride. I heard stories about coming off these things that I might wake up with a tummy ache, use a couple of vacation days, pop in a movie, and I'll be good to go. So that night, my last pill, the 10th pill of the 10.5 months, I did it, and I woke up in the morning, and I was absolutely floored, devastated. Just my insides destroyed. I never knew that a feeling like that. It was just crazy to imagine the pain that my insides, the mental anguish that I was going through in that moment. So I called the doctor, begged him for more to further my prescription, but he had already extended it as much as he could. So couldn't do that. So I did the next thing I knew to do was to go to the streets to buy these pills. So that's what I did. I went to the streets and started buying pills just to get through my day. And it became a thing of not really getting high anymore. I just didn't want to, I couldn't be sick, as we've heard about earlier. I would get the pills, I would wake up early, go down to the west side of Buffalo, buy pills, and then I'd go to work. And I would teach our youth, which is a sickening thing to think about. That's what I did. Then there came a time, like I mentioned, I had that surgery during my 7th year of teaching, and I came back after rehab, and I received a letter that I was being let go due to budget restraints of the district, along with 21 other teachers in the Sweet Home district. So I lost my job. The girl that I was going to get married later that month left, and then later on, that was right before Christmas time, and then around Christmas time, both my grandparents, both my grandmas, I should say, one passed away after a long battle with a sickness she had been dealing with, and then a couple weeks later, my other grandma died suddenly. So I had a lot going on. So my drug use increased. It was the only way I knew how to deal with that pain. It's the only thing that I knew my whole life. That being said, I lived with my dad. My parents were separated at a young age, but we were always together for all the holidays and family functions and things like that. And he was my best friend. Probably could have used more of a father figure, I realize now, but he was my best friend. I lived with him in college and throughout after that. And on the weekends, I would come home from work, and all my friends would be over there with my dad partying. I'd walk in my house, get handed a bottle of beer, get handed a mirror with who cares what was on it, just put it up my nose and start my night. That was my weekend every weekend. We all partied together. And he would do the pills and stuff with me on the weekends. Okay, so that was my normal Friday and Saturday night at my apartment. So now there's crackdowns coming on the doctors prescribing these pills. People are going to jail. These pills are harder and harder and harder to find. So now I'm sick for 2 or 3 days, waiting for my guy to call me and say, hey, I got the pills. You're good to go. Well, I need something to bridge this gap because I can't take it. I don't know how to handle it. So an acquaintance, says, hey, I got something for you. Try this. That'll bridge the gap. And of course, it was heroin. And by the grace of God alone, I never used a needle, but I would snort this heroin until the pill guy called and was ready for me. Well, eventually, this guy with the heroin is there all day, every day. He's calling me buddy. He's calling me Fred all day. He's there, available. Why am I waiting for this other guy when I can just go get heroin? It's cheaper. It does the same thing. Feels the same way as we've heard about. There's no reason to wait. I'm just going to go right to him. So that's what I did. I went right to him. Started buying heroin, every morning, daily. At this point, I didn't have a job, but that's what I was doing. And then my dad, on the weekends, we'd party. So now he's doing heroin instead of the pills with me and my friends. So, like I said, lived with my dad. He was an alcoholic. He was the nicest man, that I've ever known besides probably Pastor John. But he was, my best friend, like I said. He was an alcoholic, never abusive or anything. But, it wasn't an abnormal thing on a Friday night for him to be drunk, sleeping on the couch or in his room at like 8 or 9 o'clock. That's how it happened. And after his mother passed away, his drinking increased. So he was dealing with that really, hard as well. So one night I came home on a Friday night. It was just me and him. Brought home the heroin that we were going to do that night. Watch a movie, eat food, whatever. Split a bag of heroin. I went to the restaurant to go pick up our food. I came back and, he's drunk, which is, like I said, totally normal. Another Friday night. So I make him a little bed on the couch and he's sleeping on the bed there. And so I'm doing my thing and he's sleeping away every Friday night as far back as I can remember. I noticed that his snoring, he was a big time snorer, but I noticed his snoring became more intermittent. And I went and checked on him, shook him, and he'd start going at it again. Well, eventually I noticed that, an hour later his snoring stopped completely. So I went to check on him, shook him, couldn't get a response, shaking him, hitting him in the face, couldn't get a response. So I panicked, called 911. So I had to drag him off the couch, and the operator, the emergency operator, is instructing me on CPR. So I'm doing CPR in my dad's body, waiting for the paramedics to come. The paramedics come, and they can't revive him. So he passed away that night in my arms. So obviously a devastating thing at that time for me to go through. At that time, I couldn't live at that apartment anymore, so I went and stayed with my mom and my stepdad. And, I used to think, I remember a couple days later, I heard a voice in the back of my head, and I used to think I was so sick for having this thought. I know now that thought was not my own, but that thought was, your best friend, your dad, died because of you. You don't have to care about anything anymore. You can just go, who cares? Kill yourself, whatever, and I didn't care about anything. So I'm staying with my mom and stepdad, and through my dad's work, I received an insurance check from his work. I was the sole beneficiary, and I received a $90,000 check because of his accidental death. So I'm still going. I don't have a job. I'm getting up in the morning and putting on clothes like I'm going to work. I was working as an electrician, and I would pack a lunch, and I'd say, kiss my mom on the cheek, and I'd go right downtown to buy drugs, go to a friend's house and lay around and eat and whatever, and go to movies, whatever, just anything to try and ease this pain. So then I had the brilliant thought that, I'm going downtown every single day. That's a lot of risk. There's a lot of chance of going to jail for a long time. So why not just go down there and buy a whole bunch, and I won't have to worry about it for a while. So that's what I did, and went downtown and bought a whole bunch, $500, $600 worth. Went to my friend's house. We did our thing, woke up the next day, and it's all gone. And I thought, well, that was pretty stupid, But again, I'm trying to ease this pain that's not subsiding. Just one after another I'm doing. So the next day I said, okay, well that was stupid, I'm going to go and do the same thing, but this time I'll control myself. Went and did it again, same thing happened. The next day I woke up and it was all gone. So now I'm going downtown every single day, and I'm buying $500 worth of heroin, and I'm doing 35 to 40 bags of heroin a day. And for about 9 months I did this. Until that $90,000 was gone. So, my poor mother, throughout this whole time, I hated, as we heard, I hated myself. I hated what I was doing, but I couldn't stop. I could not stop. So I would try and quit on my own. I would try and go to, meetings and stuff to try and quit. My mom thought I had some kind of mono, depression, whatever she thought. I don't know, bless her heart, but I would be on the couch for a week and trying to get rid of this thing on my own, couldn't do it. With all that money in the bank, there's no way. There's no way. So that never worked. So now my money's gone and I'm sick again. So I start selling things that I bought with this money, PlayStations, TVs. My room's becoming emptier and emptier as time goes by, just to get through, the next day. Pretty much living minute to minute on how am I going to survive this? How am I going to not be sick? I'm going to get high and go have fun. I'm going to not be sick and isolate myself, like we've heard. So eventually, all my things are gone. I've exhausted all the lying I could do to my friends, saying that my bank account's frozen. Can I borrow a couple $100 till tomorrow? Sure. They trusted me and loved me. I can't ask my mom for money because she thinks I have $88,000 in the bank. So there's just no way. I'm out of ideas. I'm sick. Especially coming off of that much of that drug, I'm very, very, very sick. Times 1,000 or whatever he said. It's an understatement. I was dying, I felt like. So my next course of action was to go to my stepdad's drawer, and I took 3 checks out of his checkbook, and I forged his name, and I brought him to the bank, and I did that 3 days in a row. And I was nice to him because I only took out enough to get high for that day. So that's what I did for 3 days in a row. So now in my head, I know that he's going to go to the bank. I know that this is all going to come crashing down, and I'm just praying that I'll be dead before it does. So I'm at my friend's house. I'm out of drugs. I'm sick in his bed. I know that he's going to the bank eventually. Now my friend who I was staying with, I guess, was off at work, and he owns a gun that was he keeps it under his pillow. So I was in the spare room, dying, sick, and I just was fighting for about hours and hours to the urge to go get this gun and just end everything. And then there was a divine intervention where my phone rang. God knew what was going on in my heart, and my phone rang, and it was my mom saying, please come home. I knew what it was. My stepdad had gone to the bank. So I went home. I confessed about everything on the Thursday. Through my cousin being at Total Freedom and my aunt happening to stop by that day, she had called all these secular rehabs, all these places, all these recovery places. No one could get me in. No one had a bed. But I was in an emergency situation. So we called Pastor and Victoria. He asked me to check out the place online and call him back in a couple hours, which I did. And the next morning he came and picked me up. Now, I went there, I knew nothing about God. I didn't care to. I made my confirmation and that was about it. And my whole thinking was I would go there, I was smart enough to go through the curriculum and the program, just allow enough time to, for my family to heal from what I've done. I'll get clean from the drugs and alcohol, and I'll go back to partying on the weekends and smoking weed and being what I deemed as successful. But when I went to Total Freedom, and I started, like they talked about, I felt the love. I had felt that kind of love briefly from my mom and my dad, but it was a different kind of love. It was God's love that flowed through them and flowed through that place. And I was open and willing to try what they were telling me to do. And that's what I did. I opened my heart and mind to what they had me do, to the curriculum, to the small groups, being transparent at the table about what I was going through. And through that process, and the healing process and the deliverance process, we call this a disease. It's labeled as a disease. I have found the cure. The cure is Jesus Christ. There was times when I first went to Total Freedom that I couldn't think about my dad without falling to my knees and asking why, or just crying and sobbing. But he has healed me from that, and he's healed me from that not just because he loves me, but for his kingdom, for his purpose. So I can stand up here in front of you and I can speak about it. We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. It's just a total miracle that I'm here to tell you this story, and God keeps opening these doors for me to speak. And I'm blessed, and I'm highly favored. And I can't thank God enough and them enough for what they've done in my life. So I'm from, just real quickly, I see Dr. Caparazzo sneaking up on me. But, what is, Total Freedom? I go to Total Freedom. What does that mean, totally free? Well, a couple months ago, I was at the grocery store. I was at Tops, and I was going through the frozen vegetable aisle, that's a lie. I was going through the ice cream aisle of Tops. And I picked up a little, like a Ben & Jerry's size thing. I picked up a thing of ice cream just to read it. And this isn't a lie. I'm not joking. I picked up that thing of ice cream, and on the tray where it was a hydrocodone 10 pill sitting right there. And so I'm totally free. The reasons that I used were rooted deep within me. They've been taken out by Jesus Christ. So when I saw that pill, it went into the toilet and got flushed away. There's no desire, there's no urge, there's no battle with that anymore. I'm a new creation in Christ. All old things have passed away. So total freedom to me is I'm higher than I've ever been. Yeah. Total freedom to me is saying thank you, Jesus, for what you've done for me, and now here's my life, you take it. I'll be a bondservant to you till the day I die. My life is to tell our tale about what happened and to save as many souls as I can. So that's it. God be the glory, and thank you very much.